What is going on today, YouTube? Hope you guys are doing fantastic. If you've been playing much Smite recently, you probably ran into a boatload of Bobble. Talking Bobble solos, mids, jungles, supports. The only role that you're not really going to be seeing Bobble very much is over in dual lane in the ADC role, because really just no value from actual abilities, unless you're running like Ula or AMC or something. That's why you're seeing a lot of Bobble. Abilities are very important. Getting that extra 10% cooldown has a lot of value. Yes, maybe you lose out on a little bit of stats, whether you want to become more tanky or you want to do a little bit more damage. But what's even better than just more damage or more tankiness? It's just being able to use your abilities more. They're still going to be very effective, just not nearly at that peak, and so it just makes missing an ability not nearly as bad. But with Bobble dominating the game as much as it is, I don't think it's a problem right now. I think it is a fun item to be using. I don't think it's very OP. I think people are just enjoying building it. But there is a pretty clear counter in the game right now that not a ton of people are trying. I played with it a little bit, and it feels very good. Now I'm here to talk about it. And what is that item? Abyssal Stone. Abyssal Stone is successful ability damage to an enemy god, applies a debuff that afflicts them with 20% negative CDR for 5 seconds, and this can occur every 5 seconds. So you can get it onto somebody and then use it again after 5 seconds, and then use it again after 5 seconds, and they will just consistently have 20% negative CDR. When they're building up to that 50%, you're negating 10% of it, because how the math ends up working out is if they've got full-blown 50% cooldown, getting 20% negative CDR on 50% cooldown brings it up to 60%. So you're basically negating their Bobble and negating part of their build, which is the entire reason they're building Bobble, is to get that extra 10% cooldown, and you're just making it so they're not actually getting that value out of it. On top of it, the stats with Abyssal Stone are actually really good. 35, 40, 250. It's a very tanky item. The issue with this item is when you're coming down to it into the late game, a lot of times it is either kill or be killed, and what kind of keeps you alive better than like Spectral or Midgard or Cloak or Mantle or Spirit's Robe, something like that. Those kind of do that, or what gives you a little bit extra damage. Binding, Glad Shield, Contagion, stuff like that. Abyssal is really neither of those, but I think it holds a niche that really hasn't been explored too much. Solo laners or supports that can fit an Abyssal Stone in their build, just make it so, as long as you're not hitting the ADC, like if you're playing Bologna, Abyssal Stone is probably not the item for you. You're going to be diving the ADC. But if you're wanting to dive the enemy mid laner or the enemy jungler, you want to take that 1v1 fight, Abyssal is going to slide in very well into that build. If you're playing something like Tyr or Odin and you're trying to actually reduce their damage, you're trying to commit on the mage and kind of just do, like, slowly whittle them down, Abyssal Stone makes a whole lot of sense. Now, how do you decide if you want to build Abyssal Stone or if you want to build something else? Well, who are you taking damage from? It's like the same thing as like counter building in a meta in a game where counter building is always changing. Or are you taking too much damage from the enemy mage? If you are, Abyssal's pretty good. But let's just put it out there that Abyssal is not a bad statted item. Again, I want to pull it up. 35, 40, 250. You compare it to something like Pestilence. Pestilence is 70. So you're getting a little bit more magical protection. It's a little less health. But comparing it to a lot of these late game items, the stats on it are actually still pretty good. And that's why I think you're not even losing that much in favor of that survivability, or you're not losing too much in that survivability phase, because you're opting for an item that still has very good stats. It's just not like that Mantle or Spirit's Robe proc. And that's why I think Abyssal should be built on a lot of solo laners that are diving the enemy mage. If you're diving the hunter, like I said, don't build it. Let maybe your support build it if you can. But I think it makes sense even in a lot of 1v1s against like the enemy jungler. I'm not saying Abyssal Stone is breaking the meta and needs to be built in every game, but the entire point of this video is just to kind of point you in that direction a little bit more. Start thinking of Abyssal a little bit more. Start thinking of counter building a little bit more, because there's more to the game than just building the same exact build every single game. Very rarely should your build travel the same exact build over and over between games. And that's what I like to kind of talk about is with counter building and with builds. Unless you're playing ADC where like actual DPS matters, some of the times maybe you're going to be a little less tanky, but reducing the enemy's abilities is going to be just the better option, or being able to do just a tiny bit more damage to threaten them a little bit more, even if you're not nearly as tanky. The idea of a true unkillable tank in Smite isn't really a thing. So a lot of times you have to give up maybe on that extra tankiness just for a little bit more utility. And that's where I think Abyssal Stone is in. I think that's the spot that it's in. You give up a little bit of that tankiness for this utility that really makes it hard for the enemy to do their job. And that's why I think Abyssal Stone is a little underrated right now. That's the video. Abyssal Stone, Bobble. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. Let me know down below, what are your guys' opinions on Bobble right now? Now it's been about 2 weeks. Do you think it's still OP? Do you think it's finally settling into a nice spot? And then let me know your thoughts on Abyssal Stone. Is it as good as I say it is? Is it as underrated as I say it is? Or do you guys have a different opinion? Let me know down below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. See ya.